This program was produced by and first broadcast on Radio Kidnappers, a volunteer-based community access station. For more information, go to www.radiokidnappers.org.nz. Thanks to New Zealand On Air for making this program available through funding the Access Internet Radio project.
You're tuned to Radio Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is a program called Real Wealth, and it's our pleasure to have in the studio Nick Stewart from the Stewart Group. How you going, Nick?
Very well, thank you. Happy New Year.
You too. And now today we're going to be talking about New Year's resolutions and goals, financially speaking. But before we get there, Nick, just remind our listeners what the Stewart Group does.
Stewart Group is a financial services business based here in Hastings, Hawke's Bay. And we support clients and advisors throughout New Zealand and a number globally.
Yeah. And where is the Stewart Group?
In Katamu Road, where we've been for the thick end of 30 years now.
Yes, indeed. And you're sort of getting ready to take over the big chair one day, aren't you?
Oh, hopefully. Big shoes to fill.
Now, today we're talking about New Year's resolutions. And I know people out there, Nick, they're going to be saying, yeah, they're great, but you break them in the next day. But financially speaking, New Year's resolutions and goals, they're very important, aren't they?
They certainly are. And, I'll share with you a funny little cartoon that I shared with our team at the end of last year. And it's one of those things where people have a New Year's resolution. Little cartoon I'm looking at's got quit smoking, exercise daily, eat healthy food, start yoga, find a mate, do something with my life, and then it's got 2009 crossed out, 2010 crossed out, 2011 crossed out, and a new date started. So the key is just to put something down and get it down before the tail wags the dog. Yeah. And you just get busy in your life, and all of a sudden your New Year's resolutions become new financial year resolutions, etc.
I did a bit of research into this topic before you came in. And one of the biggest suggestions, you probably agree with it, is the number one is pay off debt.
Certainly is, yeah. Well, it's one of those things where if you pay yourself before you pay anyone else, it's happy days and things just work. Whereas, if you do have a big monkey on your shoulder in the form of a lot of debt, you are paying someone else before you pay yourself.
Yeah, indeed. And the next one was build an emergency fund, and I think that might be easier said than done, because I think most people are probably a bit strapped, aren't they, sort of live hand to mouth these days. Is that what happens?
Yeah, that is the case. Certainly, if you look at the way that we run, we as in terms of society, we don't have a lot of reserves. Most people are running, they are running hand to mouth. Which is not the way that it was when I recall talking to my grandmother, and she used to have it in a jar, and my father talks about this as well. He reminds us that when, credit cards weren't around, and there weren't FBOS cards, etc., the monthly forward bills were sitting in a jar, and each one was wrapped in a rubber band. So she had the power money, other utility money, anything to do with school. It was all, there was a reserve fund. I know it's simple that it was in a jar, but it did work, and that was the way that our forebears used to run things. Whereas today, a lot of people aren't running like that. It is hand to mouth. I mean, you can get it where the banking system, may go down for a day, e.g. like the FBOS machines don't work, and therefore if the FBOS system goes down, so does the ability to process a credit card transaction at the supermarket. And you hear that people, they just don't have the cash reserves without those facilities.
Are they simpler times? I mean, I was reading an article over the holidays where in 1957, in the good old US of A, the average salary was, so we'll say round figures, $4,500, and the average house was $9,000. So 2 years of salary could buy you a house. Well, it's about 10 times your salary now, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. The store of wealth, or the amount of money tied up in housing is very, very high. It's a large number. People they don't understand what it used to be like back in the day. Whereas they look at it today, and most people have accumulated wealth in the form of housing, and because of that, a lot of people have had a very successful track record in that, as that inflation pressure has come through with the housing stock.
Yeah, and I see, or I heard on the radio this morning as we're coming into work, that the average cost of renting a house, particularly, say, in the Wellington area, is $450 a week.
Yeah,
it's huge.
It's a lot of money.
That's a big smash out of your
Yep.
out of your wage. Now, number 3 on the list of what we should be doing moving forward with our New Year's resolutions, and again, I guess it's a pretty hard one, save for your retirement. People are going, what? Can't save for tomorrow, never mind my retirement. But you'd agree with that one.
I certainly would. Yeah, I mean, if you put away some pennies today, it's very, very important, but also coupled with the fact that there is a tax incentive to do so. So one of the things that I would say that anyone on the top of their list would be, if they're not enrolled in KiwiSaver, to enroll in KiwiSaver as quickly as possible, because, look, there is a benefit in doing that. And they should also be maximising their tax credit, because there are a few people that I meet, and it's a very, very easy win for them, or low hanging fruit, where by increasing their contributions to KiwiSaver by a small margin, they maximise their tax credit. So that's where, if you save into your KiwiSaver scheme $1,040 a year, the government will give you a tax credit for half that amount for free. That is a 50% return on your investment. Now, that just doesn't happen.
It's a no-brainer, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an absolute no-brainer. And it doesn't happen out there without serious risk. Well, this is risk-free. This is the government pays you.
Yeah. Out of all the things that we're going to talk about today, would that be one of your non-negotiable suggestions to people that, put some money aside, because whether you do anything else, that's the most important thing?
Yep. It is, although, certainly it is, although I look at it and I say, because that's, $500 odd of free cash per year, but it is locked away into a long-term savings scheme. But the one that I would say is that transparency and understanding of what you spend. Because it's really, really hard to make a plan when you don't know what you spend. So it's kind of coming back to, that old word, budget.
Yep, sure.
Set a budget, but in simple terms, what is a budget? It's just giving you the transparency of what you earn versus what you spend and what is left over, or what is the shortfall. That would be the primary building block to get started.
That's a good idea, actually, to actually write it down, because, if you're buying a coffee a day, not that I do that myself, but a coffee a day must cost at least $4.50, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
If you have 4 coffees a week.
Yep. Hey, it adds up, and I remember a story where Warren Buffett, one of the world's greatest investors, Berkshire Hathaway in the United States, and I recall his former wife would say that he would analyse buying a can of cola or cherry Coke as his favourite. He would only buy it when it was on a discount. For sale and a promotion, and he would quantify the cost of that transaction over his lifetime by acquiring it at a discount. So if you use that simple analogy, there he was working out the cost of something over his lifetime.
Yep.
Well, if you were that type of person and you carried a calculator
That's right.
and you quantified the cost of your daily coffee over your lifetime, dare I say it, you'd be able to clear your mortgage with the amount.
Yeah, you're probably right there. My daughter has sort of changed me a little bit. That she had a philosophy, probably still has, where she looks at a product when she's going to buy it, and she says, "Now, if I buy that, I've got to work 10 hours to pay for it." And that's probably not a bad way to look at something which might be a little bit trivial. You think, do I really want to do that now?
That is a great philosophy. And that's great that she's, empowering you with that same tool. It's a great way of thinking. I also find when I'm talking with people, they always talk about gross figures, e.g., my salary is $50,000. Well, yes, it is, but Bill English and his government, they get paid before you do.
Yes.
Because, they get the PAYE. So, in fact, you should really think about net salary or net wage, because it's a much lower figure. and it's quite sobering in that sense, because that's what you get to live on.
Yeah, exactly. And again, just coming back to writing down everything that we spend, I think that if we did that, we probably, as you have suggested, we'd be very surprised at how that money adds up over the years. But the reason we don't do that is we don't want to know.
Yeah, a lot of people don't want to know. They are glass half full people in their mentality, and e.g., it will get better tomorrow. I can deal with this next year. Whereas in fact, if you do delay and you don't want to know about it, it can snowball and become quite a problem.
Yeah. Now, another tip that they have suggested to get ahead in 2017 is improve your credit rating. How would we go about that?
Yeah, now improving your credit rating is something that's really big offshore. United Kingdom, United States. People very much cherish their credit rating. In New Zealand, a lot of people aren't aware of the concept in the same sense of someone in the United Kingdom or the USA. But the way that you increase it is certainly by not defaulting on payments. A lot of people also don't realise that if you have applied for a serious number of loans over your lifetime, it actually tracks as a negative score against your credit worthiness, because the fact naturally it comes up that a number of people have checked against your name.
Yes.
I wasn't aware of that until because we're a financial services company, all of our potential staff members have to go through a credit rating along with a police vet check, vetting check, etc. And I wasn't aware that having applied for a number of loans that would rank negatively against a potential employee in terms of their credit score, and it does.
Wow,
Yeah.
That's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Now, the fifth thing on the list before we go to a break and have a song is they recommend that you buy a house. Again, easier said than done this day and age.
Yeah. Well, with the new Reserve Bank overlay in terms of loan to value ratio requirements of 20% deposit. Hey, well, if you wanted to buy a $500,000 house, accumulating $100,000 tax paid in savings is no small feat.
No,
$100,000 is a lot of money.
Is there a way around that?
Yep. Well, certainly one of them is to set a budget, know what you spend, set a target, but certainly enroll in KiwiSaver, because your KiwiSaver can be transferred to assist with that equity, with that 100,000 deposit or 20% deposit. And the other one that we're seeing a lot is that there is an intergenerational wealth transfer occurring,
yes,
where parents or grandparents are assisting children, grandchildren get into their first home and just getting them over that hurdle.
We're going to take a break, have a song. When we come back, and talk some more to Nick about New Year's resolutions and goals, financially speaking. You're back on Kidnappers, the voice of Hawke's Bay. This is the Real Wealth Program. Our pleasure, as always, to have in the studio Nick Stewart from the Stewart Group. Now, Nick, before we went to that song, you mentioned that parents or grandparents could help someone get into a house, financially speaking. Is that an issue for the parents or the grandparents in a tax overview? Do they have to pay gift tax, or what does that
No, it's fine in New Zealand the way that the tax structures or the tax legislation is laid out. But we would say that the grandparents or the parents need to be careful that they aren't going to hinder their retirement by being overly generous with children or grandchildren, and occasionally we do see that happening. When you consider that actuarial tables or calculations on someone's lifespan on the planet, that when you retire at 65 and become a superannuitant, if you don't have diabetes and are fit and able, etc., that you'll be on the planet on average until you're in your mid-90s. So your capital at 65 needs to power you through your life for 30 years. So at, say, 65 years of age, giving away $100,000 or $200,000 to help a child, you may find you run short of money in your late 80s.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
So that's why we say to people, be very, very careful with what you gift away. We would also say that because, look, it's fact that a number of marriages fail, that the gift should be done in the form of an advance. So that, if you give to your daughter $100,000, that if the marriage, something was to, something unforeseen was to occur, that half of that $100,000 doesn't disappear off to your former son-in-law.
Yes, indeed.
So by simply registering that advance against the title of the property and having it documented, which is a very simple process that a lawyer can complete, it gives you that protection.
And when you see programs on television talking about, preparing for your retirement or your future retirement, often that figure is bantied around where you're going to need $1 million. And I think the average person is going to say, there's no way I'm going to get $1 million. Is that true? Do we need to take any notice of that sort of stuff?
Well, now I remember a discussion that I had, I think it was 2 weeks before the former Prime Minister John Key resigned. And he was talking about the fact that the kind of cradle-to-grave welfare state that we have in New Zealand actually does have a quantifiable value to it. For example, $1 million sounds like an incredibly large sum, and look, it is. And the reason why those figures are mooted as being so high is because the rates of return off, say, bonds or fixed income, term deposits, etc., are so low. So you need more saved to generate the same amount. And the Prime Minister made the comment, the former Prime Minister made the comment that given that the pension amount hasn't halved when interest rates have halved, it's remained the same. The theoretical sum that the government has to have in reserve, if it did have it in reserve, would have doubled because of the fact that the earning rate is so low, and the fact that we have what is effectively free healthcare, etc., means that there is actually quite a large amount that the government is providing to us. So let's say in the United States, where there is no system like that, if you haven't saved into a pension, there is none. There's nothing waiting for you. There's no free healthcare, etc. Yes, you would need a full $1 million and some to survive. But in New Zealand, because of the way that we, have set up our egalitarian society, the quantum of capital versus a foreigner, it is less in New Zealand.
We live in a paradise, don't we?
We certainly do. It's interesting you say that, because I was reflecting, I came back to Hawke's Bay on Sunday, and in Taupo it was 21 degrees and it was 30 degrees here at 6 p.m. And I look at my friends who are offshore at the moment, and imagine what their oil and power bills are at the moment for heating when it's -4, and we live in this absolute paradise.
I know you never hear me moaning about living in New Zealand. Okay, so just talk us briefly through, Nick. I decided that wow, what a great idea. We do need to have a resolution and a goal heading in towards this year. Or I'm older and I want to talk about my retirement. I come and see you guys. What's going to happen? What are you going to say to me?
Well, what we do, we sit down with someone and we have a, roll up your sleeves first session where we just have a chat about your values, your goals and objective in life, and we always want to make sure that your spouse or partner is there as well, because it's there's two horses to every chariot, and we want to understand where you want to get to, and we then formulate a plan on how we can best get you to achieving those goals and objectives in the shortest possible amount of time with the least amount of risk. Although after that, there is the heavy lifting comes, and money doesn't grow on trees, as they say.
No, that's right.
And so we tell people what they need to save on a weekly, fortnightly, monthly basis, etc., and what they do to maximise their current assets, or how they minimise their current debt by maximising their payments.
Yeah, indeed. Okay, we're just about out of time now. In a few days' time, Nick, it's going to be President Trump. What do you think? Do you love it? I'm excited by it, because I think he's going to maybe shake up. He's going to shake up the whole world, to be quite honest, isn't he?
Yes, yeah, very much so. An entirely different approach to the presidency of the United States, and that will occur on midday Friday US time. So, yeah, it's going to be very interesting. Looks as though he's got a good team around him. It's not going to be he's not going to be operating in a vacuum. No. He's got some good people around him, and look, at the end of the day, there's a great saying that I've heard, and that's that the voters are never wrong. No,
that's true.
Yeah, and America voted in Donald Trump to be president, and that was their choice. And as I say, voters are never wrong.
As a financial institution, is the Stewart Group concerned about a Donald Trump presidency, or is it just going to be business as usual?
Well, the markets are forward looking, so if there was going to be any potential shakeout, it would have already occurred. Because the markets are processing information all the time, And in fact, the markets are forecasting this is going to be, a good time during the this first of possibly 2 terms of the Trump administration, because the markets have done incredibly well, and he plans to rebuild an incredible amount of infrastructure in the United States.
So, like me, you'll be getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to watch the inauguration?
No.
You won't. Come on, mate. Okay.
No, I'll watch delayed coverage on that one.
Well, before I let you get back to work, just remind our listeners, Nick, if we want to come and see the Stu Group for any reason, where are you?
We're at 204 Katamu Road. Just look for the large tartan logo on the granite stone building.
And what's your phone number there?
It is 878-8961.
Good on you, Nick. Talk to you same time, same place.